figure it out. And I remember Bitches Brew, you know, when we were recording that, all the musicians were like, what is it we're trying to do here, you know, and everybody was searching and trying to figure out where we were supposed to go with the music, and it really has this exploration kind of feel to it, which I think was what Miles was looking for. He didn't want to have all the I's dotted and the T's crossed. He wanted to have this organic development to the music, and often he directed the music while we were recording. He would say, okay, now you play, or, you know, he'd have some...
Well, did he say, now you play this, or give you some charts, or did it just say you play?
Yeah, sometimes he'd have a specific voicing that he likes, the pianist, or he'd say to me, you know, work on his bass line, or somebody's asked me to make up a bass line. But he'd have a general concept that he was working on, and he let the musicians fill in the blanks a little bit, which is why I think the music was such a great experience to play, was because it demanded of you your creative input. It wasn't somebody dictating to you how they wanted the music in exact terms. It was more like, okay, this is the area we're looking for, and let me see what you can do with it. And that's how it came together.
I'd like to know about Dave Holland as a composer. And what is your approach to writing? Do you write specifically for the bass? Do you first come up with a bass line all the time and then develop the music around that? Or what is your approach to writing?
Any way I can, basically. You know, sometimes it'll start with a bass line, but that's not generally, you know, that's not the case always. I mean, most of the time I'll be working on something. Sometimes it'll be some kind of mood that I'm feeling that I want to try and express in music. Sometimes it'll be just some rhythm that I'm sort of interested in, that I'll see if I can write something around this rhythmic approach. Sometimes it's a connection of chords that I like, and then I start to work with that, work a melody out. So there's lots of ways of entering into it. Entering into it is the hard part. Once you get inside it, then you just follow the thread. And you try different things. You see, well, where does this lead me? No, I don't like that. Let me try going in this direction. And it's stringing it out. Sometimes you have a bigger picture, you know, like with the big band. I might have a plan for how I want to, you know, have the architecture of the piece. And then within that architecture you start to work it, and of course as you start to work with it, the plan for the architecture changes sometimes. But, you know, so there's lots of different ways of coming at it. And basically I just use whatever method seems to be leading me in a direction that's going to bring some results eventually. But I do think a lot about the players that I play with, and I often write songs that are really geared for the people I'm writing for. Everything I've ever written has been for a musical project. I very rarely write a piece of music that isn't related to something I'm going to do. And so very often I've got somebody in mind or a group in mind that I'm writing for, and then I think about how that group is and what's going to be fun for everybody to play and what's going to give them a vehicle to explore their creative thing.
I think I've heard similar things about Duke Ellington.
Well, you know, Duke's a great model for me of how to write for a band. Duke and, of course, Billy Strayhorn, his partner in composing. You know, they worked together for so many years. They really wrote for the band, and you know, a particular song would be written for Johnny Hodges or Cootie Williams or, you know, different players. So that's I think that's inherent in the music a lot of the time. You know, we're often working on a particular project and writing music for that project. So I'm interested in presenting the band music that's going to whet their appetite and allow their creative juices to flow.
I've got one more question, and this is regarding your bass playing. And I'm just wondering what your theory is on the bass. I mean, how much of your bass playing is strictly rhythm versus the other elements that bass can bring to the music? And what are those other elements that bass, other than the traditional rhythm section playing?
Well, you know, the bass deals with the same thing every instrument plays with, which is the three main elements of music: rhythm, harmony, and melody. And as a rhythm section, of course, the traditional role of the bass is to work closely with the drums, and also to, if you have a piano, or in my case we have vibraphone, to work with the chordal instrument, which forms the rhythm section. We act in different ways. In a traditional role, you play mostly a supportive role, but in contemporary jazz, it's a much more interactive role that everybody has. So we do a lot of dialoguing, and, you know, I look for horn players who get inside the rhythm section, who who have a conversation with it, not just playing on top of it.
Right.
And so for me, I'm interested in this. One of the things that attracted me to jazz right from the beginning was the whole dialogue idea, the fact that, you know, there's a communication going on. It's not just people up there playing their own individual parts, but everybody's talking to each other musically. And it's what I loved about the music from the beginning. I mean, my first jazz experiences were in New Orleans bands, playing, you know, the traditional Louis Armstrong, King Oliver music. And I've never forgotten the sound of that three-horn front line and how it used to sound. So, you know, to me, that's such an important part. So the bass, as over the years, through the contributions of all the great bass players that have gone before, you know, it's been developed in its role from just a purely accompanying role, and now takes a real role in the dialogue and the interaction with everybody.
All right, well, thank you very much,
You're
Dave.
very welcome.
I really appreciate it.
My
I'm sure
pleasure.
this will be very interesting to our listeners.
Okay. They heard Chris Potter practicing in the
yeah,
background too. So.
Yeah, I enjoyed that.